All right, everybody, welcome back to the KSR YouTube channel. And today, we're playing with this on the dyno, and that's Drew.
Look at my butt. While it's crapped out.
I wasn't intending to, but that's what just ended up on camera. So yeah, we're gonna dyno. Hey, the button didn't stick. I got a magic button there. You gotta you can see this got damaged when the pole fell over one day, back when we were moving it from the other shop. So we've got a sticky button. But yeah, we're gonna dyno the Blueprint 540. So yeah, pretty excited to see how that does this time. All right, so we're almost there. Gotta wiggle the button. So we gotta pull the button out and then the dyno lift stops going up. One day I'll fix that, but it'll be fine for now. So Drew's torquing the wheels, and we're gonna try out this new exhaust, see what kind of noise it makes, and see what kind of power it makes. Here we go. All right, let's back this beast onto the dyno. Actually, the key's over there. Bring the thunder. All right, well, since the car was on the channel last, just a couple weeks ago, we have fabricated a extra water box. So the true definition of it is an expansion tank, which is basically just to allow for extra water capacity in this case. So you can see the bottom of the box connects down to the radiator right by where the water pump is sucking water into the engine. And then we actually ran out of fittings, so right now it's just got some water in it. But this is going to connect over here to that, so that it kind of adds a small element of circulation to draw some of this water in. Now it's not adding much cooling ability, but it's adding just water capacity. So the idea is that it's going to extend the length of time that he can be wide open, or most power in the burnout. He's not going to be wide open, because you don't need to be wide open in the burnout pit unless you don't make any power. Kind of like me and my Lexus, I'm wide open pretty much the entire time the tires are spinning. But this thing shouldn't need to do that, because it's going to make, you know, well over 600 wheel horsepower once we hook the blower up. But just to begin with, we're going to dyno it just on motor. I'm going to warm it up, kind of be driving it a little bit while it's warming up, just to be looking at the tune, see how different it is from the 496 tune, because I think the camshaft that I had in my 496 was actually more aggressive than the cam that was in this engine. So we'll figure all that out while we're warming it up. We had some other fans and radiator on order. That's kind of why this hasn't been done yet, but they didn't come in. So we're gonna go ahead and run it with what we had. And then we decided yesterday to put the water box on it to try and, like I said, extend the capacity, or extend the length of time that the car could be run hard in the water box, or the burnout box. So ideally there's going to be a radiator and fan swap that happens on this thing, and it's going to go from having, like, you know, 3,500 CFM of airflow to like almost 7,000 CFM of airflow, and that should keep the engine cooler. But that'll be for another day. Drew's got the tires aired up. Already did the rears, but this front tire was flat. And I can actually start driving it while that's airing up. I don't need front tires on the dyno, but let's see if we can make some noise. got her warmed up. Man, I'm sweating. It's hot today. I'm gonna actually make a pull on motor, see what that looks like. And yeah, turn the fan on in front of the engine. You can see basically it was running off of one fan because I have the first fan turning on at 185. So the water temp kind of came up to about 188 is the highest I saw, and then it came down, you know, to where the fan turns off at 180. So that all seems to be working good. I'm gonna go turn the fan on out front and we'll make a pull on motor. All right, well, after my little test drive, we found an oil leak and we had to chase it a little bit. So there's a plug right under the factory fuel pump mounting location on a big block, and it's leaking a little bit. We had tightened it up, but apparently didn't have enough sealer on it or something. And the alternator belt was squawking at us. So we're gonna tighten that up, change the plug, try this again. All right, we'll be back in just a second. Of course, it'll really only be a second for you guys, so. All right, we're back. All right. Let's make a pull. Probably just gonna go to say 5,000 RPM. And then I'll look at data log, make sure everything seems happy. I'm expecting it's not gonna be happy, just because different engine, different cam. We'll see just how far off the closed loop correction is. Obviously new exhaust. All that stuff's gonna factor in. Let's find out, see what happens. Fire in the hole. Let's look at the data log. Whew, it is hot. And I've got to go home got to go, you know, kind of destroy my life around here. Got to go pick up kids from school. So that's probably going to wrap up this dyno session. Let me out. And I think I'm going to take this data log home. Closed loop was good in the middle. -5 early, +7 up top. So got a little bit of changing to make there. But then what I'll do is make all my changes, come back in first thing Monday morning. We'll start doing some more finalized pulls on the thing, and then change the oil, put the blower valve on it, and away we go. All right, well, we are back on the dyno Monday morning, and it took a little bit of time. Actually, it took a little longer to get on the dyno than I thought it was going to take me this morning, but we did go ahead and hook up the line to the water box. And after some thinking over the weekend, realized that wasn't gonna do anything. So what we did is we hooked it up over here to where the water is actually coming out of the engine. And kind of the thought behind that is the radiator causes a small pressure differential from the inlet of it to the outside of it, where you've got the water pump sucking water out of the one side and it's pushing back into the other side, plus all the restriction of the tubes going through it. So to just make it draw a little bit of water out of here, this has a 1/8 inch NPT to 6AN reducer fitting in there, and inside of that fitting I drilled and tapped it for a Holley fuel jet, like from a carburetor. Luckily the tap size works and the outside diameter fits perfectly inside of the 6AN line, so that's kind of like an adjustable bleed that we can do. And cranked it up a little bit ago. This tank is now warm, where before we had anything hooked up, the tank stayed ice cold even with the radiator getting up to 190 degrees. So that seems to be working now. I had cranked it up just a few minutes ago. Thought it'd be a good idea to check the fuel level. We only had about 1/8 of a tank of fuel. So had to go run out, get some gas, just running 93 octane in the thing. I don't really foresee it being a problem on the 93 octane, and with the flex fuel sensor that we installed on it, when it adds in the ethanol content fuel, the ethanol sensor will add the appropriate amount of fuel so that hopefully they blend together and work all pretty good. So I worked on the tune over the weekend, looking at the data log from Friday, just to see where it needed to add a little bit of fuel or take a little bit of fuel out, just to try and have the O2, just to try and have the Holley doing as minimal amount of correction as possible. Typically I try to get within about 5% through the different temperature ranges, because that's just how it kind of works out. So this engine is advertised at Blueprint to be a 600 horsepower engine, which typically with an automatic transmission, it's not abnormal to see 20%, let's say 18 to 20% loss from the engine to the rear end on a stick shift car, just because you don't have the loss of an automatic transmission with a torque converter. They're just not super efficient for transferring power through the drive line or through the transmission. So with an automatic transmission, it can be 22 to 26 or 7%. I've actually seen as much as 40% on an engine that dynoed on an engine dyno, and then we put it in a 4-wheel drive with a transfer case, with a Ford 9-inch rear end, with big off-road tires on it, and the thing literally lost 40% from the flywheel to the tires. So I would think this thing should lose somewhere around 25%, which should be 450-ish horsepower to the tires. The first pull the other day was 436. So I think we should be able to tune it up, get it over 450. Maybe we can get a little bit more out of it and beat the conversion factor by a little bit, but let's hop in and see what happens. So looking at the pull from Friday, that was 153 miles an hour wheel speed, which is kind of one of the reasons why the pull was so long. Not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of that with this drive shaft. Now that the torque converter is actually coupling with the motor pretty nice, it's got a lot of wheel speed, and that was only 5,800 RPM. And this thing should want to turn 6,500 RPM. So I may have to do some pulls in second. I'll do another pull to 55 or 57, 5,700. Yeah, we'll do another pull to 5,700, and then maybe we'll do the rest of the pulls in second gear so we don't have lots and lots and lots of wheel speed. should not have gone that many RPM. That was 170 miles per hour in third gear. But the good news is we did go over the peak and we made 453.8 horsepower. So that's already got us right there on top of the advertised horsepower of the engine, so I'm pretty happy with that. All right, well, time for me to do some analysis. We will be back in just a second. So looking at the data log and at the dynograph log, got some pretty exciting stuff that we did. So if you see down on the bottom part of the run, I'm having to lean over here to get to our TV. We went from, let's see, 428 foot-pounds of torque down there at the bottom to 470 foot-pounds of torque. So it hit way harder. You can see the blue was the run we just made there. And at that same speed, we went from 353 horsepower to 400 horsepower. So that was actually a timing change that I had made down on the bottom end below like 5,000 RPM. I gave it, I think it was 3 degrees of timing. Got it up to 37 degrees down there. Pretty much 37 the whole way. It was 36 and a half up top. So the top got just a little bit of timing as well as a little change in the fuel. And you can see it carried out the whole way. So that all is pretty exciting. Pretty happy with how all that worked out. And I think I'll make another one, maybe go up 1 more degree of timing and see what that likes there. And then that'll probably wrap it up for the naturally aspirated dyno video. And before we get into the boosted dyno pulls, I'm gonna change the oil, maybe pull the valve covers off, lash the rocker arms just to make sure those are all still happy. So we got a little bit of work to do before we really send it with the big power. But let's get back to this. Yeah, make a few more changes and try another pull. All right, well, I made a couple of small changes to the tune. Let's see if we can back up what we did before. We'll call that a wrap. It seems like it's only just a teeny tiny bit better. Yeah, like, I mean, it picked up 4 to peak. So 457 versus 453.8. Torque was about the same. The power was definitely better up top. And even down, let's make that a little bigger. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing much on the bottom, which I didn't add timing down there, but I added a degree up above 5,000 RPM to like 39 and a half, and it seems like it pretty consistently picked up about 4 horsepower. So that's really about where I would cap it as far as amount of advance to keep gaining power. The engine's not as hot here as it is going to be in the burnout pad. So although I do have offsets in it for temperature, like once it gets above 220 degrees, I have it pulling timing out. Yeah. And same with air temp. When the air temp gets real hot, it pulls a bunch of timing out. So I think we'll probably call it there on the motor tune. 3 consistent pulls, you know, 437, then 453, almost 454, and then 457. Could this thing make more power? Yeah, it's pretty low compression. So very low compression, and like there's probably 50 horsepower in compression if we went to say like 10.5 to 1 compression on the thing. So if this engine was higher compression, it could make more power on motor, but then not be quite as happy as it is when it's got boost hooked up to it. For the compression that this thing is, I honestly wouldn't have a problem with it just running on pump gas. I mean, we're only thinking the thing's gonna make 10 pounds of boost on this motor, maybe even a little bit less. So I feel like we've achieved the advertised horsepower of the engine at the flywheel, the way Blueprint measures them. So I'm pretty happy with that. Don't really feel the need to try and tune it up beyond that and, you know, beat the daylights out of it and risk hurting something. We're not wheezing out of the breather anymore, which is a really good thing. It means we've got good ring seal, don't have any water in the oil, like I think we were getting a little bit of before. And now that everything seems really happy. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Appreciate everybody watching, subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't. Got lots of cool stuff coming up, including Cleetus and Cars Indy, where we will be racing in the Indy 800. Hopefully they fixed some of the problems my car had. I mean, it definitely had dead shocks on the front and it felt like it was a little down on power. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just different gearing than the cars that I'd had before, but we'll see what happens in the race this next weekend. See you guys next time.